Welcome to Off Grid Victory. So this is my primary orchard, and I wanted to show you kind of the reason why I cage plants. I think I've showed it in a couple other videos, but here's a great example because I tried two experiments, caged and uncaged. So here's a caged tree. This tree is probably about 3.5, 4 years old, and so the base of the tree, the trunk, is probably about a 1¼ inch diameter. And you can see it's a pretty nice tree, and lo and behold, there's some fruit on there. And what I wanted to show you is this guy right here. So there's some damage here, and that could have been from the wind, but most likely it was a deer, because some of these leaves are chopped off and there's no leaves down here except for this little guy. So I would call that deer damage. And specifically right here, you can see some of the leaves have been chewed off, and that's been torn off. So yeah, most likely it is deer. So that's why we cage, and of course to protect the trunk base especially, because the deer definitely like to rub on these trees and scratch for ticks and other things, and they end up destroying the bark of the tree and the cambium layer, which kills the tree. So this is the main reason why I cage. You know, rodents could also do the same thing at the root base, trunk base. But I wanted to do an experiment this year, and here's the experiment. So I have another tree here. It's a pear tree as well. And this pear tree, well, let me stand off here. Okay. This pear tree right here has a really established trunk base. Now this trunk base is at least 2 inches wide. You can see all that bark on there. There's no way a deer is going to go and rub on this tree just because it's established. It has a very barky outer layer, and they're not going to try to eat it or rub on it. But once again, look at this. Look at the amount of deer damage that it got, whether it be branches and leaves like this. All the leaves are taken off, and it pulled on this and broke it there. And here, same thing. You see all the leaves have been stripped off. Some of it at the end very much just crunched off, and then of course it's been pulled down, and yes, it's broken that particular branch area right there. All these little branches here, you can see they've torn it down, and all the leaves are off. Now, why did I do this, knowing that I have deer and they can do this kind of damage? Well, I wanted to do it because this particular tree didn't have any fruit on it. And so what I wanted to do is two things. I wanted to see whether or not the trunk base was indeed wide enough that they wouldn't rub against it, the deer. And of course they did not. And so that was a good learning thing. The other thing I wanted to see is if this particular tree, if I stress it in terms of having it be eaten by a deer, that next year it might potentially fruit. Now, I don't know if there's any kind of a correlation there that I can say there's a cause and effect afterwards, but I'm willing to try an experiment. And like I said, this didn't have any fruit on it, so yeah, let's see what that does. Like, so if this thing gets a little chomped on now, that's fine, because in a few days what I'll do is just pare it down a little bit, some of the damaged areas, and I will recage this up, and so it'll be protected from deer again. Now, in going into the future, I will try some other things. I mean, ultimately, what I'm kind of leaning towards is a larger fence-in area, fencing the entire orchard, probably with a 6-foot permanent fence. And that's really the only foolproof way to do this kind of orchard. Maybe even higher, 7-foot fence, we'll see. But then that will give me the ability to be off-grid and not power it anyway. I could use a solar-powered electrifier, something like polywire, something like that. Or The other option is maybe what I can do is get some of these new infrared sonic deterrents. And so I haven't tried that yet. I know the electrifiers work for sure because I've run sheep here, and so yeah, I could do that, but I don't know if I want to use an electrifier and go through the hassle of weeding around the fence line all the time. So yeah, I might just go to a permanent fencing solution, but I want to try the electronic stuff too, the alarm. So we'll see how that goes. And you can see the rest of the trees are happy and they're all caged, and they really haven't been eaten on much. And so yeah, I know the fencing works in terms of the individual trees. The entire area, I'm not sure whether or not that will work. I will definitely need some high fence in order to achieve what I want to achieve with the deer. Yeah, or you know, ultimately maybe a dog, you know. So anyway, as I start getting more fruit into my orchard and need to protect it, we'll have to look for other alternatives in terms of protecting these trees. Now, a tree like this is no longer super young. This tree is probably about 5 years old. So yeah, the trunk base is good. I don't really have to worry about that. The leaves, of course, the deers will eat that, and if it had fruit, of course it would eat that. So yeah, I realize I do have to keep protecting these trees, and we'll have to work out something better in order to protect all these trees for once and for all. Alrighty, shalom.